So I've got a lot of questions recently on how I do my covers, and how I record my cover songs into music videos. So today I'm going to do that in the most layman term possible without getting too crazy or too technical. I have some links that I'll send you guys over to if you really want to get technical into the things. But this is just a basic way of how I do things and stuff. Yeah, let's get into it. I'm definitely going to divide this up into two parts. I'm going to show you guys the music part, and I'm then going to show you guys the video part, because both of them are two different animals, and you have to kind of do one to do the other, and I don't want to get you guys all confused and stuff. I am by no means a teacher, tutorial, YouTuber, none of that stuff. I'm just showing you guys because you've been asking me some questions. I'm going to break this down into like 12 parts, I think I have on there. You probably couldn't see that because there's a glare on the screen. Pretty simple. It's just everything that I record in sections. If you're going to do a vocal recording and you're going to use a backtrack, I would just say skip the majority of this until the very end when I do vocals, because I always cut vocals last. But if you're going to record every single instrument like I do, keep on watching. The hardest part I have is picking the song, believe it or not. A lot of the songs that I pick are pretty easy to learn because I don't want to go too far out of my range because I can't sing super high. I don't want to go super low. I don't want to have someone who has a strange voice, but I kind of like to stay in my lane. My thing is that I'm trying to keep everything kind of stripped down because this is what I'm working with. And I'm going to start out with my setup, which I'll show you that right now. We'll jump to my screen. Alright guys, we're on my screen right now. We're going to jump into Logic, which I already have set up. I already have open, should I say. And this is my basic setup. Let me just start this over real quick. No, I don't want to save it. And I have templates set up. I have this one set up for more of a full band version, and then I have this one set up for more of a acoustic intimate version, which we're going to use for that. We're going to go to autosave. Just a basic setup, piano, scratch vocals, harmony 1, 2, and 3. I usually put 2 or 3 harmonies in there. The drum setup, which each instrument has its part. There's your bass drum, snare, hi-hat, tom, floor, and your overheads, which is what OH stands for. It's your cymbals and hi-hats, that kind of thing. Any overhead sounds you were to catch with overhead mics. My brother taught me this process, which I've adapted into my own little thing. And then I have my my own little channels for drums and drum delay, which are bussed over. Guitar 1, 2. This should actually be a guitar 2. Because what I tend to do is record like intro, and then I'll record the verse in this track, and then I'll record the chorus, and then I'll do the bridge or whatever. It's a lot easier, so it's not so sloppy, not so messy. You're jumping from one thing to the next, and you can kind of take your time. And then, of course, there's the lonely bass guitar track and a lonely acoustic guitar track, which sometimes turns into 2 or 3 guitar tracks, like I did in my Olympia, Washington cover. There were 3 acoustic guitar tracks, which were basically guitar 1, 2, and the acoustic guitar. There's a couple lead parts and stuff in that. More boring stuff. Anyway, this is my basic setup. I will leave a link to this guy's channel in the description below. Is a music tech help guy. He helped me out with a whole lot of stuff. He showed me how to set all of this up. Before, we were just kind of setting up your sounds, which are just from here to here. But then he showed me how to bus stuff. You go to guitar, and then you have your guitar. You have your guitar's delay, and then you have your own channel for your guitar's EQ, which doesn't have much in it right now. It's just kind of bust. And then the same thing goes on with drums. Like I was saying earlier, each of these has their own separate track. You can plus or minus them, so say you have more drums. I run everything through Superior Drummer on here. Simple drum stuff. I had an electronic kit, got rid of that, and I just use my keyboards right now. I'm not the greatest drummer, but I can manage, and I manage on the keyboard. So let me get rid of this boring stuff. This is all the way to mastering in, and Music Tech Help Guide does show you all that stuff all the way to mastering. Let me get out of there, and the first thing I do is I set up the tempo. I set up my piano track, and this is just a scratch piano track so I can get scratch vocals out of the way. So I'm going to jump back to my camera, and we're going to do the piano track. All right, so we're back to this side of things. I got my keyboard set up, and I'm just going to run through a piano track right now of the song. Alright, so I'm all set up right now for some scratch vocals. It's just so I know where I'm at in the song, so let's do that now. Come on, understanding, visit me for once today. As you can see, I did some scratch track vocal parts. They're not all that great. They go just a little bit of pitch correction, so I'm not cringing the whole damn time that I'm doing this. Just like polishing a turd right there. But now we're going to move on to, I believe, drums. I think I'm going to do drums first, and I'll show you how to do my drums because I can't really play drums all that well. So as you can see, I don't have an actual drum set, but I use this guy right here, and I'm just going to run through this and put in some drum parts where I think drum parts are needed. Okay, so I decided I'm going to move on and not do drums. Maybe some embellishments later on, but for the most part, no, none of that stuff. Jump over to acoustic guitar, and this is my acoustic guitar setup. It's not the most proper, fancy way, but this is the way I've done it, and I haven't had any complaints. Basically, I have my Tascam TM78. Set it kind of on here. Volume down on the monitor. Headphones on, and here we go. Now that I remember how the hell the song goes, it is time to record it. So let's give this a couple more times and show you what it's like when it's done, because I'm going to be wasting a lot of film if I just show you all my mess ups. So I just recorded the intro, which took more than a couple tries because I keep fumbling with my fat fingers. But this is what I have so far. And I did the verse. So that's me doing acoustic tracks. In case I mess up, I have acoustic track 1 and 2 set up. I can either go back and punch in what I messed up, or I can go in and just redo the entire track. For electric instruments, I record things a little differently. I don't plug them up to a microphone, obviously. I don't mic a cab and run it into Amplitube 4. It's a plug-in, has a ton of different amp sounds. For bass tracks and for guitar tracks, you have your pick of the litter. There's a ton of different pedals and compressions and plugins and a bunch of different shit you can pile on your guitar and your bass to make it sound as authentic or as crazy as you want. It's not going to be the exact sound as the amp, but it's pretty damn close, and that's what I use. I got my Fender Jazz bass here with new strings on it, so I'm just going to kind of plunk around and figure out what I want to do. If I want to do this at all. This could just be a throwaway track for all I know. So I've decided on some pretty simple bass track. Just kind of one fingering it the whole time. My brother taught me this trick. You leave some of the notes open. And since this song is in D, I tune this down to drop D. So you have that nice low note on the bass. I'm going to do this a couple times. Tune it first. And that's kind of the cool part of it, is that when you're doing a cover, you don't have to be exactly like the artist, because the artist has already done that. Kind of have your own artistic license, and it's kind of free reign. You can do whatever the hell you want, which is what I like to do. So I did decide to go with a drum beat. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or not. Let me just quantize all these eighth notes. Starts out like that, and then nothing's mixed yet or anything, but basically the drum part I decided to go with is going to be similar to Adam's song by Blink-182. There's kind of those offbeats and a lot of syncopation, so I'm going to go with that. I might take it out later. If anything, I can just mute the hell out of it. Go with no drums later on. Either way, it's going to make no difference. I'm going to put some electric guitar tracks onto this thing. I'm going to try to find a guitar sound on Amplitube. I use the same thing that I do for bass. That sounds terrible. Maybe do a guitar track. Just some like rough palm muted chords in the background. Just as embellishment. And I'll probably pan them like 15 left or 15 right, depending on how I have the other stuff panned. I just ran through it a little bit once, and I kind of like how it's going. Here we go. Alright, so I got fundamentals down. Bass, guitar, acoustic, drums, and scratch vocals. Now I'm going to put some embellishments in the mix, which are typically like the fillers, like your vibes and your organs and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of fill things out a little bit. For embellishments and that kind of thing, I decided to go with a string arrangement, which kind of went with the original version that MXPX does. It's just acoustic strings and vocals. So that's kind of like a little add-on to that. No horns or a synth or anything crazy like that. Some of these embellishments are... they just add flavor to it, so that's that. Now it's time to cut vocals and for me to do harmonies. Alright, so you saw me cut scratch vocals. I'm just going to skip to it and cut regular vocals right now, and then I'll show you how to do harmonies. What I do though, is I mute this track right here. It's just a scratch vocal track that I was doing before, and I mute that, and then I make a new one and label it Vox 1, and then I also duplicate that one. And basically what that is like I did with some of the other tracks is I'll sing the verse on Vox 1 and like the chorus on Vox 2, verse 2 on Vox 1, chorus 2 on Vox 2, and so forth. And what it does, it kind of breaks it up. That way you're not like gasping for a breath or like waiting for that next beat to come down. You can just kind of take your time with it. Okay, so I cut some vocals. And now I'm going to do some harmonies. And then after that, it should be pretty much done other than mixing and just a small minute amount of tweaking. I like to edit as I go as well. So I've done like some comping and I've cut some things out where there's like gaps in between vocals and gaps in between guitars and just lunky guitar, takes with my hand brushing up against the pickup or something. I've taken that stuff out. And that's all stuff you can learn on YouTube tutorials, depending on what DAW you're using. Each one's different. But let's just jump in and do some, harmonies parts. If you come knocking at my door and I am not around. And now I'm going to do something called comping. Pretty much every single DAW has the damn thing, and I'll take you to the screen, show you how to do that. Basically what you do is you do a bunch of the same take over and over again, and you pick the best one. This isn't a good example of it, but say I really liked, zoom in. Say I really liked the first bit of line I said from this take and the second bit of line I liked from this take. I can take them and mash them together, and it'll sound like this. And you can also jump around and play with it, so you can move that down here. So you might like this take. I'm going to end up probably putting auto-tune on this because it sounds like poop right now. And then I'll pan this like a hard 15 left. And I got to bring the volume down, obviously. But that's pretty much how I do that. And that's pretty much my process. I know I could have went into detail and added a whole bunch of more stuff to there. Mastering, mixing. But this is just, you can figure all that stuff out on your own. It also is subjective to what DAW you're using. Like I said, I'm using Logic 10. You can use Logic 9. You can use Reason. You can use Garageband. You can go a million different ways with this. But it all ends up the same pretty much in the end. This is how I done mine because I've had some questions about how I do it. But that's it for this one. Let me know down below if I did okay. I'm probably never going to do tutorials again, except for this part 2 that's coming up for how I do the video editing and all that stuff. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. I'll also leave a link to the finished song with the music video in the description below, as well as links to anything that's helped me along the way for Logic, that is. So that's it. Stick around for part 2. Or laugh at me at part 2 because I don't know how to teach, so I never became a teacher. Digressing a whole lot. Roll the outro.